afternoon. Please remember to silence your cell phones. On behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club, I call to order the 13th meeting of the 62nd year of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, will be given by Pastor Sean Matejko, Whipple Avenue Baptist Church.
Would you bow with me, please? Most gracious God and Father, Lord, as we gather this day in both friendship and fellowship, we thank you so much for the blessings that we all have within and also around us today. We certainly pray for all of our club members, our board and volunteers, and we ask your special hand of blessing to be upon Dennis as he leads our club through this season. We pray and we give thanks for the meal that we've had here today. And we want to pray today for our speaker, Doug Ute, and we certainly ask that you might bless both he and the OHSAA as they lead and they direct our state's programs. Bless also the young people who work so hard and play hard for our pleasure and the pride of the schools and the communities they represent. We thank you once again for this day, Lord, and ask your blessing through Christ our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joining me at the head table today is Doug Miller, our Luncheon Club Vice President, Pastor Sean Matejko, and our guest speaker today, Doug Ute, Commissioner of the OHSAA. I'd like to recognize and thank our club sponsors, Aultcare Primetime Health Plan, Dr. Peter Ferguson, Liberty Ford, Marion Motley Memorial Scholarship Fund, the Bistro of Green, and Wilkshire Golf Club. I want to thank Frank Salona. He brought in some calendars. Thanks, Frank. Calendars. They're in the back. Please help yourself. Also, it was a tough loss for Ohio State this weekend. Really bad. But let's see what they can do in the playoffs. This week, Hall of Famer DeMarcus Ware will be here in Canton, December 5 through 8, as part of the Hall of Fame residency program. And my quote for the week is from John Madden, and I quote, "When the going gets tough, I am not always sure what you do, and I'm not saying that I know how to fix everything when the going gets tough, but I do know this, when the going goes tough, you do not quit, and you do not fold up, and you do not go in the other direction." Okay, tickets for the December 23rd meeting at the Pro Football Hall of Fame will be on sale starting December 9th and again on December 16th. Remember, you do need to prepay your meal, and everyone must have a ticket to enter. So 50-50 today is worth $179, and I'm going to ask Doug to please draw the winner. Thank you. The winning ticket is 633-259. 633-259. Winners? Winner? 633-259. Ozzy? Right there in the middle. All right. Next week, our speaker will be Kia from the Canton Invaders. I'll introduce today's speaker. He's a friend of the club, Doug Hugh, former coach, teacher, athletic administrator, principal, and superintendent who spent 35 years in Ohio schools, was named the executive director of the Ohio High School Athletic Association in 2020. He is the OHSAA's 11th leader in its 117-year history. Please give a warm Hall of Fame Luncheon Club welcome to Doug Hugh.
Good afternoon, everybody. I heard that little sigh on that Buckeye game Saturday, and you could have followed up with, well, we got the Browns tonight. Wow. Yeah, tough crowd, yes. Or Massillon's not in the finals this year. I know half of you will probably, oh, we got a boo down here, yeah. So, no, I appreciate the opportunity to come here. It's my 4th year in a row. Coming here because my first year was COVID year, and I never, ever let a chance go by to thank the good folks at Massillon during that time of COVID, because we gave and Ohio was one of the few states in the country that had sports that year. And I always say this, Maryland, the kids in Maryland didn't even have one practice for one sport that year. And Ohio had 26 state championships going on, and then coming up in this area, I still remember when we were going to be in Columbus at Obet's and for state football, and on Wednesday, think about this, on Wednesday, we got notice that we couldn't have our championships in Franklin County, and 2 days later we're in Massillon playing football. So thank you. If you're a Massillon person, I always say thank you to Paul Savino and the good folks at Massillon for that. But just a little bit about the OHSAA. We are now at 28 sports. We just added girls wrestling 2 years ago and boys volleyball. And so we have 14 boys sports and 14 female sports at the OHSAA. And girls volleyball 3 years ago had 250 young ladies wrestling across Ohio. They had 2,500 wrestlers last year. And so that sport is really on the move. And I bring that up because we're always looking for the next bowling. One of our sports is bowling. We added 20 some years ago, and it just took off. It's a great sport, and if you watch the kids in bowling, most of them don't play another sport, and so that's their football that they have. And so it's great to see that participation, and we're working with the Browns and the Bengals and NFL right now with girls flag football, which is one of the fastest growing sports across the country. And so anytime we can give kids an opportunity, we're really full force behind that, and so appreciate the opportunity to do that. But so we're at, as I mentioned, 28 sports now, 350,000 athletes, 817 member high schools, 752 member middle schools, and third largest association in the country behind California and Texas. And so really excited about the opportunity to come in Canton this week to end our fall tournaments. And you know, when people ask me, as an example, Pennsylvania went away from sporting venues, and they now do their high school tournaments at high schools. And we want to stay away from that, but it's very costly to be in these big venues. And I know David Baker, now Jim Porter, has carried that on over to us. We're not in for free, mind you, but they've made it affordable for us to be here and give our kids, as I tell the executive directors in our states when they say, where do you play your football? I say, hey, we're the state with a Hall of Fame, for crying out loud. Why wouldn't we be in there? And Ryan Day hasn't brought us to Columbus yet, so we're safe here another couple years. But I shouldn't even have said that, because I know the jokes that are going on with that. So, but in any event, we are so excited to be in Canton, because giving our student athletes and our communities an opportunity to come to the Hall of Fame, and not just the field, but inside the Hall of Fame, because your ticket gets you in there as well. And I had a meeting over there at 10 and just spent an hour walking around. Of course, Many of you have probably been in there several times. It's one of those things you go around, you pick up something new each time. What a great place to be. And so I can't thank Jim and the group over there enough for allowing us to bring our tournaments there, because I talk about this all the time. Everybody wants us to be in Columbus for everything. But we're tennis, soon to be back in tennis in Cincinnati after the renovation of that great facility down there, and we stretch all the way up to Canton for football, swimming and diving. We're in Akron for baseball and softball, and we're in Columbus a little bit too. And so we spread out all across Ohio. But I think the main thing that I would tell you is that we share with our group is we want our kids to have a wow factor. They deserve it when they get here. To get off a bus and say, wow. And I always say here, you don't even get off the bus in Canton. You're on the highway and you look over and you're wow. Those kids are really excited to be here. And so we thank the Hall of Fame, but really thank the folks in Canton, because you roll out the red carpet. You guys know how to do that. And I've always said that. The folks at Canton, they do the Hall of Fame game, which I've been up to, the gold jacket ceremony, all those type of things. And you folks here, whether it be at a hotel, a restaurant, or over at the game, wonderful people. So thank you very much for allowing us to come invade your city for that 1 week. So a little bit about the game. This year we have some of the usual people. That blue right there will be there in the Division 7 game. And I had an opportunity to go watch Marion Local and Coldwater. So Marion Local is in Division 7, and Coldwater is in Division 6. And I say this about the Marion Local rule. So we went to 7 divisions, which I'll share with you here in a minute in other sports, because we've had 7 divisions in football for quite a while. And we allow teams in those others. You can play Division 1 if you want. And so we had some soccer teams move up to Division 1 and those things. And the reason we don't let you move up from 7 to 6 or 6 to 5, Marion Local would be the only Division 7 team out there. Everybody else would move up to 6 and find out what Marion Local's doing. But I'm excited for Marion Local and Coldwater. Coldwater will be here in Division 6. I went to Coldwater week 10 and got there at 5 o'clock and watched a small town atmosphere in a Friday night. Tailgates all over the place. Restaurants crowded beforehand. I think it was 5,000 people at the game. Well, just take this in. Would you like to, what did you, $150 today, right? Back there? The 50-50 take home was $22,800 at a high school football game. Yeah. Think about that. Yeah. Think about that. And wadded the cash up, wrapped hot dog wrappers around it, rubber bands, and said, here. Anybody who worked at the IRS? I didn't win. So, but I learned a long time ago. I bought tickets on both sides of the field, so the Coldwater people would know. But that's small town football at its best, and both teams 9-0. And maybe you can help us. People ask me all the time, what is it with that Marion Local team down there? I don't know. Just good.
It's the culture.
It's the color, yeah.
It's the culture.
It's the culture. Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's no question about that.
Hasn't changed in 100 years.
Yeah. So, but that's fun. So, Marion Local, Coldwater, Kirtland, those teams that you see up here every year, it seems like, but we look at Division 1. Moeller's coming back, and somebody asked me, they said, Moeller's there quite. Moeller hadn't been here in over 5 years, and so. They came out of that Southwest with Moeller and St. X and Lakota and Princeton and all those powerhouses down there. But in Division 1, we have Olentangy Liberty making their first trip, who beat St. Ed's last week. And so excited for, actually have 3 teams. That's their first time. Is it Janaden Hutton? Janaden Hutton. There, they got the name right. There's a Bobby Huggins fan back there, I'm sure. And Indian Valley making their first trip this year. Excited for that community. Hillsdale, was not far from here, is making their first trip. And so that's 3. 3 new ones making their first trip. So really excited about that. And so Should be fun. We'll take the weather today for this weekend. I can't believe, what, an hour and a half north talking about a foot of snow. So keep that snow away. We had that, I stood at a football game last Friday night and thinking, man, I'm too old for this stuff, that weather, because we've had some pretty good years of that. So, I don't want to stand up and bore you at all with things, so I'll open up for questions, but I will tell you, one of the things we did, and I really like this, is that we went to 7 divisions in our team sports. And as I mentioned, we went from 4 divisions in volleyball and soccer to 5 in soccer, 7 in volleyball, 7 in boys and girls basketball, and we'll do 7 in baseball, softball as well. So, but think about this: we have 7 divisions in football. We have about 100 less schools in football than we do in basketball, and that. But the reason we did it was simply because if you looked at Division I in a 4-division model, you could have 352 kids in your high school, and play Division I against somebody who has 1,300 kids, and the disparity from top to bottom was just so big. And think about this: we were putting kids in a tournament that school wouldn't play in that league because of the size. And I could do a half-hour talk on 1958. The state of Ohio said all you small towns have to combine to make school districts, bigger school districts in Ohio. So consolidation hit. So in 61 and 2, they opened up, and everybody pretty much said, here's our league based on similar sized school. Because I live in Marion County, and there are 4 county schools in Marion County. And each of them had roughly, in the early 60s, about 1,500 kids in their district, the entire district. Right now, Marion River Valley has about 2,300, Marion Ridgedale has 600. You're not staying in that same league. And you had that go on all across Ohio. I'm not really sure about Canton right here, because Glen Oak and Hoover and Jackson probably been about the same size, stayed in the same league. But out around it, you probably had some movement, and you move because your kids can't compete if they're smaller against those larger schools anymore. But our tournaments never changed for that. And so just south of here, Strasburg girls made the state volleyball for the first time. And we saw that disparity even shrink in the smaller districts. They're a D7. And that town went nuts for those kids. And that experience that they got was just outstanding. And so we're seeing really positive things out of that. And of course, anything we do, somebody always says it's a money grab for the OHSAA. It's the same amount of games with the same amount of teams. And we saw this fall, it didn't move the needle one way or the other. We didn't lose a bunch of money, and we didn't make a bunch of money on it. It's all about the kids and the opportunity that our kids have to put them in a tournament that they would play in that league against similar sized schools. And so that's why we went to that. We like what we've seen, hearing good things. I tell our people all the time, I care about everybody, but I really care about our kids and our schools. I don't really care about somebody that sits home all day in their pajamas, sitting on the couch with no job, that makes comments online. And so that's where you hear the money grab thing. So I tell people all the time, didn't run a school district according to what they're saying online, and I'm not going to run the OHSAA that way. And so every now and then I hear somebody said this and that, but it's all about the student athletes and the experience they get. So with that, why don't we just open it up for some questions? Because I've come up here every year and talk about the same things. And
What was the attendance at the finals last year for the Division II?
oh, 14,700 paid.
Paid?
And then Massillon snuck another 500 on the sidelines. I think. Yeah. I think they knew what door was open. I think. Yeah.
Can you talk about flag football? Where is that
Sure.
going in regards to becoming
Yeah.
a sanctioned sport?
Yeah. Right now, to sanction a sport, in other words, so girls wrestling or boys volleyball, had been talking with our office for about 5 or 6 years before we adopted that as a school. So we want them to align, even though they're not one of our sports, we want them to align with their athletic department and their school. We want them to form a coaches association that represented statewide, Those are important things. And we want our athletes following the same thing that member schools or member sports follow. And so you got to pass 5 credits, those type of things like that our student athletes go through, so that when we take them over, it's an easy transition. And then we want to see that sustainability piece in there too. So I remember when somebody brought lacrosse to me in Newark, and it was a parent, and so you got to watch out for a parent that has interest in her son's class, and they graduate, and then you're stuck with 2 athletes in a program and those kind of things. And so we want them to show some growth that other schools are joining. And so the one thing I would tell you is that, we're a nonprofit, just like you are, and we're a reflection of our membership. And so what that means to me is things that we do come from our membership. This isn't coming from our membership. This comes from Roger Goodell, who walks by Troy Vincent's office and says, Troy, you got Ohio, because Ohio's a big fish for them. You got Ohio to adopt this. And Troy calls Jimmy Haslam, and Jimmy tells the vice president, who tells the young lady, and they call me and say, so the push for us has to be from our member schools. Just like anything that would change in your club would come from your membership here, and not somebody from the outside, not some corporate sponsor or something that way. Now, having said that, we can adopt sports that we sponsor, or we can adopt. We have cheerleading that Varsity Brands does. That's a corporate sponsorship, but kids are state champions here. And so, and what that means when I share our logo is that I had a call from a parent a few years ago that said, "Can you help me out?" I couldn't help him out, and what he wanted me to do was, if you walk in their lobby, their commons area at their school, they've got state championship pictures. You know what I'm talking about at your schools. And this school has quite a bit. And so the girls had a wrestling tournament. They were part of the boys, because wrestling was wrestling, okay? They were part of the boys, but they could wrestle in the Coaches Association's girls tournament, not ours. Didn't have anything to do with it. And a young lady won the state, and they wouldn't put her picture up on the wall because it wasn't sponsored by the OHSAA. She did every single thing that those young men did at her school in wrestling, and is not going to be part of that history up on the wall there. And so this means something to schools, and our sponsorship does. So we're all about recognizing our young athletes, and so I think we're going to get there. But we want the push to come more from our schools. And if you've been to a Browns game, or especially early on, they play flag football at halftime. We had high school flag football here at the Hall of Fame this summer, and so that push is coming, and we're more than happy, because they're finding nationally that about 80% of the young ladies that play flag they don't play any other sports, which is hard for me to imagine, but. We want all of our kids in our schools to have an opportunity to play a sport and be a state champion. So we're behind it 100%. It's just how quick it'll be.
What season would that be in?
What season? I forgot to say the question over, so I apologize if you did say that. What season would it be? Some states do it in the fall, some do it in the spring. So if you look at the fall with a lot of high schools, because turf now is at most places, and so the marching band gets on the field, the football field as well, and how much the lacrosse is out there, soccer in the fall, lacrosse in the spring. So we're finding that we would be looking at maybe a late winter, early spring, so that we don't interfere with softball and track and field, those type of things. And it's not set yet, so. Yep.
I was at Massillon Big Walnut game, and in that game there were 26 penalties for 175 yards. How do you get your officials that they wouldn't talk with a coach or something? Supposedly they were jamming the signals, I don't know. But you should let the kids win, not the officials.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're from Big Walnut, you say, tell them guys from Massillon to quit holding maybe.
75 yards in any game. I mean,
Yeah,
this is the
a lot.
14th game of the season. The teams are pretty what they are.
Right.
They never had maybe 8 or 9.
Right.
26.
That was a late, that was a regional final game. And so, you know, you get to the regional final, those crews that are on those are either working the state finals this week or have worked them in the past, because usually what we do is in most of our sports, you can't do back-to-back years officiating so that everybody gets a chance.
Close. Massillon
Yeah.
doubled their running, tripled their passing, but every time it was like first down, it would be 1st and 15, 1st and 15.
Yeah.
They had a inside, I think, the 15, and it was 1st or 4th and 1, ended up 4th and 21.
Yeah.
Now, something's
They were
going
all
on.
pre-snap penalties.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Pre-snap penalties?
Pre-snap penalties.
A lot of pre-snap penalties? What you're talking about? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, the team's not changed that much in one game.
I don't know. Heck, you know, not to bang this drum, because I'm a big Browns fan, and I say every week, why in the world are we still making the same pre-snap penalties? And so they do at the professional level as well. But our officials, you know, they do a great deal of education, and we also do an online. Every coach has to view in each sport an online video of OHSAA regulations, as well at the end officiating a piece in there from our director of officiating. I'm not sure about that. I will tell you this, I know Paul Savino really well, and Paul hasn't texted me, nor has Nate Moore, or shared any of that, so I'm not.
Kids should win or lose it, not
Right, 100% agree with that, 100%. Yeah, so we were a state that we adopted a transgender policy now 10 years ago. That was in effect for about eight and a half years. And, but it wasn't, you know, there are all kind of different policies out there. Some say, as I identify myself, that's the sport I'm playing. And so, but Ohio, you had to go through year-long testosterone treatments and have a medical doctor say that you weren't strong. So we had maybe 22 athletes in 8 years participate in that. Most of them at the middle school, and it was usually kids just wanting to be around their buddies at track and field. To my knowledge, we had no athlete win anything, not a county tournament, not even, we didn't have one complaint about it, not one, report back to our office. So we were rolling pretty good with that, and as everything was going on, we just sat on that policy. But I'd tell you this, Connecticut had somebody win 100 and 200 in their state track meet. And so that issue's out there. We thought ours was strict enough because you couldn't just say, I'm going to be a female this sport and do that, which some states had that. Ours was a little bit more stringent, probably as stringent as there was in the country. But we're going to follow the law. That's what we're going to do. And Ohio says, so now it falls back on our schools. And what falls back on our schools, so you look at the federal piece of that and the state piece, and they're two different things. I'll put my superintendent hat back on. I was in Newark, Ohio, had a $108 million budget every year. A lot of money coming in. $8 million of that came from the federal government. So if I had a transgender athlete in Newark that said, I'm going to play softball, whatever sport, and I didn't allow that, I put at risk $8 million of the federal money that they might say, you're in violation of our federal law, but if I follow theirs, then I'm stuck with Ohio's penalty on it. And so Ohio schools are a period right now of wait till somebody pushes that. I'm glad I'm not a superintendent anymore for dealing with that. Hey, all of my support for my underprivileged kids, my social workers, after school programs, all that came from the federal government. All of it did. And so that's an issue I think some schools are going to face. But we at the OHSAA, we're following Ohio law. And we changed our policy. Again, 22 kids, none of them won anything, no calls to us, not one complaint at all. And so I don't know if we just got lucky or what, but that didn't happen in a lot of states. So that's still going to be interesting.
Back to that officiating.
Sure.
Something I always wondered about, you know, in a situation like that, what's the review process? Or, I mean, you have like if you have a game that's an outlier, do you automatically review that, or what? I mean, there has to be some kind of.
Yeah, we get, actually, somebody at that game, that accrue would have been being evaluated by someone, not employed by us, but hired by us to go do that, who is an official. A lot of times, it's your older officials that can't go up and down the court, field, whatever, that say, hey, I still want to be involved, and so I'll go evaluate. And so there are times that Bo Rugg, who's our director of officiating, sometimes Bo will show me something and say, hey, what do you think about this? First of all, I've never had a striped shirt on, never blown the whistle. So I'm not going to criticize anybody that's done that. They're human. Just like, you can do that with coaches and those type of things. But they're always evaluated at that level in particular. They're evaluated before they get there. That's how they get there. And so we have that evaluation process. Sometimes it's no more than saying, hey, why did you call this? And show, because everything's filmed anymore. And so then you have good film. Why did you call this, that thing, and work with Bo and his crew, not as something that, hey, we're going to hammer you for this, but let's use it as an educational tool. One thing I learned, as a former basketball coach is, and I tell people this all the time, because we're all about behavior right now. There's nobody going to plant a flag in the Hall of Fame this weekend, which I thought was just atrocious last week. That's out ridiculous throughout the country to do that, where kids are seeing those kind of actions. We put a lot of time and effort into behavior from our coaches, our student athletes, and our communities. And so, as we look at that, I've never seen an official say because I get these, so they'll send me the bad ones, and it's like a coach entered an official's locker room or went down the hall. I've never seen an official say, you know what, you're right. Let's go back and put 2 minutes and 20 seconds back on the clock, and you're shooting a free throw, and let's just replay that, what you're complaining about. And so we want to use that just as anybody, just as in your jobs. We have a staff. Everybody's evaluated every year. I'm evaluated by the board, and it's more of a process of a professional growth opportunity. And so we try to do that with officials. And let's remember that we have an official shortage problem in this country. Ohio's swung up. We're about 2-3% increase, and a lot of that's because of our efforts. We're in nearly 80 schools right now in Ohio, giving our students, high school students, an opportunity to get their license. And because I tell this story all the time, got a 10-year-old grandson. When he was 8, he's playing travel baseball, and I go watch a game on a Sunday. The guy that's running the tournaments comes over and says, introduced himself, said, hey, I heard you could help me get a few people licensed. We're sitting there talking, and there's a young man, I got a little nosy, said, hey, what do you charge to get in the tournament? What do you charge this? What do you pay your umpires? He said, I don't pay them. Each coach gives them $35 in cash after each game. And I said, how old's that young man there? He stands behind an 8-year-old. Coach's pitch. So he's got a little counter. He counts to 6. There's 6 pitches. Got to hit it or you're out. Every now and then he has a bang-bang play. He was making $70 a game, and he did 12 games that weekend. He's 16 years old. Now, think about that. It's instant employability. It's good cash. But our adults at those places have to control themselves. Just like we tell our school administrators that it's not the official's job, because that always gets me. Well, the official threw me out. That's not his job to throw you out. He's got to officiate. Our school administrators need to be there and be visible, and they take care of those kind of things. That's what our school administrators should be doing at these games. And so, I'm not going to defend officials, say they always make the right calls, because they don't, but they are human, and we do have that process of evaluating and trying to help them grow professionally. Because I go to some games sometimes, I shake my head at what they go through, what people yell at them, adults doing that, and it's just at some point, we've got to. I don't want to get going too much, but man, I just saw that they had to split the screen this morning on the news. 4 games last weekend with the flags going to get planted. Come on. That's ridiculous. Bad behavior. Kids see that.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, there's a penalty if it occurs during the game.
Right.
What is the penalty after the game?
For a coach? Oh, for the school? Yeah, well, some schools pay this. I say you're crazy for doing it, but we have a fine. And you have to watch a video, a training video on behavior. And I see some ADs say, well, I'm going to pay my coach's fine because I don't think he should have got that. That's your business. And fines to us, they don't generate revenue. We don't like to fine people that are members, but we also share too that behavior. Your kids see that, your community sees that. So a lot of leagues are developing policies for adults in the crowd. So if a coach gets tossed, they sit 2 games, 10% of the basketball season, or a game in football. And now fans that are getting tossed, the leagues are saying you're out 2 games. You can't come back on there. So trying to keep that under control a little bit, and because kids see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when you first started, you mentioned something about the Hampton tournaments. You don't make money, but you don't lose money.
Yeah.
All the years that I was involved with coaching and teaching, I was under the understanding when you run a tournament for the state of Ohio, the state makes the bulk of the money, and the school that sponsors it gets money from the program and from the concession.
And parking. Yeah. And I would just say, so it will not cost you money. There are events, so we're renting your facility, basically. And to our, we're no different than a school. I was an athletic director that the superintendent told me he's going to pay for my coaches. Don't ask him for anything else. That meant I was paying transportation. I was paying for helmets. I was paying for basketballs, paying for uniforms. Thank God I had a great booster club that helped with those things. And so out of our 28 sports, about 14 of them lose money, and the other 14 make. Basketball and football allow us to do tennis and cross country and those things. And you know what that is? That's a school district. If I'm at Jackson, if I'm a community member at Jackson, I'm not making any money on tennis, but I provide tennis an opportunity. Friday nights do that. It's the football and basketball gates that support your whole athletic program. We receive absolutely no funds from the state of Ohio. 0. 80% of our revenue comes from butts and seats at tournament games. 10% come from corporate sponsorship, 3% from officials' dues. And so, when I took this position 5 years ago, we had 1 month's cash on hand. We had 4 straight years of deficit spending. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out something's bad happening. And in a school district, you put yard signs in and say, please support the schools, and you're going to pay more income tax or you're going to pay more property tax to do that. Who likes to do that? I mean, I was a superintendent, and we passed a 1% income tax in the district where I live. And selling that, I didn't want to pay that. And now that I'm not at the school, I really don't want to pay it. And so I understand those things, but we were headed that way. And so we have to be, and right now we're at 9 months cash on hand. Every member school, whether they want a tournament game or not, because we were at 11. And our goal to say, if we're at 9, we can operate for 1 year without asking anybody for money if COVID hits or something crazy like that. And so we passed 9 months last year. So every member school, all 817 member schools, received a check for $2,000 last year from the association. We're a nonprofit. We're not allowed to share in profits, but we're allowed to assist our member schools with their mission. I don't know if there's an accountant in here that can explain the difference to me. I don't understand that. Sounds like the same thing to me. But every member school got a check for $2,000. Every member school that makes it to the regional and state level gets reimbursed or assistance for travel expenses, and that costs about $2 million a year. We lowered our student ticket price to $5 all the way up through the state tournament, and lowered our adult tickets $1 in the fall. It's a $2.3 million hit on the association by doing that. We gave away $201,000 scholarships last year. and various other things to get us at that 9 months cash on hand. And that's where we want to be, because we don't want to put yard signs in our member schools and say, you need to give us more money, because that costs them on what they're doing. And so, so that's what I meant. I meant when I talked about that, and the wrestling, girls wrestling, we're not making any money on girls wrestling, and we're not making any money on boys volleyball, but we're giving our kids that experience. So, and I say this all the time, is there a lawmaker in attendance here? When you take money from the state, they start telling you how to run your association.
That's right. No free money.
We don't get any money from them, and they're still telling us how to run our association. So, and I love the lawmakers. I love them. Love them. But
How much does the association make on the streaming program?
Yeah,
It's $9.99 and.
yeah, it's a percentage that we get for the National Federation streaming, or there are some other streaming services that we get out there. And so we have a deal with Spectrum, who televise our football and basketball tournaments and pay us a yearly fee to do that. And we also have streaming where we get a percentage of that. And I don't know what, altogether that is, but, we like that, because I get stuff all the time from folks in Arizona or Florida watching their grandkids play. And so that's a nice thing to have. And again, I wish we could do everything for free. Everything for free. But that's not possible for us.
Do you think the streaming though did cut into attendance?
I don't think so. Not, maybe last Friday night. Yeah. But no, we haven't seen. I'll tell you what's cut into our attendance, and it's not a good thing. I don't see our young man that was in the back of the room a few years ago.
Cadillac?
Yeah. Is he in here? Because he hit that cash thing last year. So, they passed a law. So we were only taking online sales for 2 years. And they passed a law that had us at our high schools. We have to take cash. So we had 225 football games week 1. How many hands are in our cash around the state of Ohio week 1? And I have to say this, I'm not accusing any of our schools from taking cash or anybody at those schools from taking cash. But our revenues backed down a little bit when we went back on there. You figure that out. It's just there's no safeguards you can put in on 225 games with cash. If that makes any sense to you. But we offer cash and option, and we prefer the online piece. But hey, now the Hall of Fame is not a public facility. And so, but we did have a conversation with Kevin and the group over, what if we did offer cash? And you come up and I'm guarding that gate and somebody says to me, all I have is cash. I'm saying, roll on in, buddy. Go have a good time. And and this happens more than once. I pick up my phone on a Saturday afternoon and a lawmaker's just ripping my tail because they have a constituent that called and said they wouldn't accept cash. And I get over and say, just let them in, for crying out loud. I don't need that butt rip. So somebody had, oh yeah.
Any chance that pickleball might become a high school sport?
Probably one day, pickleball people out there. Yeah, I mean, anything that we can give our kids an opportunity to. I've had one person, besides our chief financial officer who plays pickleball every night. She's always on me about that. But we've had one person email me, and I said, you need to talk to your athletic director at your school. And he's never reached out or anything that way. And again, member-driven organization. If our membership comes at us with pickleball, then absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Way in the back.
What is the status of NIL for high school?
Oh boy. Well, LeBron didn't re-sign with the Cavs, so that saved us him bringing his kids to Ohio. And I'll tell you this: we had it on the ballot 3 years ago, and 13 states had it at the time. And I'm going to tell you, California has it, and they've had it forever. and it's called the Actors Guild. A lot of their kids are actors, and so they make money out there, and so they get that. I get that. And so we had it on the ballot, and it failed. 80% of our schools said no, didn't want it. And the reason that failed is because the AD said that we got too much to do. We don't want anything to do with that. And but I mean, come on. Who in the world is going? There's only been one LeBron, and he would have gotten something. He probably did get some. That's why our rules are as strict as they are, because 23 years ago LeBron pushed things, and I'm not saying he shouldn't. And again, we haven't had schools bring it up, but we do two fall and spring, 2 times a year. We go out around the state, and we have regional meetings. So our school administrators come to them. And so last spring, I had our attorney put on their NIL for 2 reasons, probably 3 reasons. One, it's called lawmakers, and 2, it's called the court system. Who put it in the college ranks? The court system. Look at the mess it created, because the court just rules in favor. Yes, these kids can be paid, but there's no rules they put in. And so over the course of 4 or 5 years, they're trying to define themselves. I mean, think about this. Ryan Day asked for $13 million a few years ago. He needs 22 now. And so, but you're not going to see that at the high school level. What I have a problem with is we have an athlete. He's playing college basketball. I just watched him twice last week in the Thanksgiving tournaments that are all around around the country now. And I would tell you that I'm not an NBA scout. I don't think he's going to play in the NBA. I don't think he's athletic enough. He reminds me of Aaron Kraft. Not as good defensively, a little bit better offensively. And he's not an NBA body, and it doesn't appear that way. He was offered, because he played on LeBron's son's AAU team a few years back. He got about 400,000 followers online on his Instagram account or whatever, the social media piece. Champion Sportswear offered him 80 cents a like. His value was said was going to be about $285,000 that he was going to make to wear their clothing. Nothing with his school logo, nothing from his high school, those type of things. He's going to get to be 28 years old, going to a banker and want to buy a house, and that $280,000 would have been nice to have. His family even asked me, can he do this and defer it for later in life? And we had to say no, not currently. I'll be very honest with you. I don't know, is there a judge in here or a lawyer? I don't. Steve Craig, your buddy Steve Craig from Canton, Ohio, has been our attorney for 30-some years. By the way, he's in Beaufort, South Carolina, a beautiful place. I visited him last summer, and he might not ever come back to Canton. Not that there's anything wrong with Canton, but yeah, it's people like Steve and the fellow that's replacing him. We're not winning that in court. We're not going to win that in court. And so we have to do something. We just had a meeting last week, and there's 36 states that have it now. And if you ask them, most of them say, New York, Robert Zayas, their director, said, we haven't had anybody get anything here. Who's going to give a high school? It's not like a car dealer in here is going to give, their basketball star a Hummer to drive on campus, and go pull in and say, the other kid's going to say, I think I'll get me one of those things. That's not going to happen. I don't know where the value is for that. If you're a top tier, Reed Shepard, who's a rookie with the Houston Rockets right now, is from Kentucky. His dad played at Kentucky. Big name down through there coming up through. He got about $280,000 of NIL money through that. And so what happens if Reed doesn't get the NBA, or he has that opportunity to make money at 16 or 17 years old? And another one of the things I have, so I could be, 4 of us could be in math class sitting there, and you don't play sports, nice looking guy, he's out modeling, he gets to make money. You don't play sports, and you're a drummer, and you're online doing this, and you're making all kind of money on social media, and I don't get to. I don't know where that wins. And so, and our schools have to know it. They don't have to run it, but you'd have to know that, you'd want to know if one of your athletes had an NIL deal with, I don't know, Pizza Hut, and comes out at the JV game at halftime, the varsity team, and he's got a Pizza Hut shirt on. No, you can't do that. And so most of the NIL, all of the NIL around the country has, you can't have one thing from your school on. So I can't have a Hoover basketball shirt, football jersey, softball jersey on, and take a picture and do things online and make money. Can't do that. And so, but I could, why can't the softball pitcher at Hoover make $10,000 just in regular clothing? How are you going to stop that? And so, more to come on NIL. I want to protect the amateurism of high school sports, and people, you know, what they have a problem with is saying, hey, you know, some of these places that have a lot of money are going to attract kids in there, and aren't they already doing that? I mean, we have 1,400 transfers a year in the OHSAA that we look at. 1,400. And, you know, and I always tell our staff, we have to protect that young lady who's raising 3 kids, who's renting a house in the Jackson School District for $1,500 a month, busting her tail, pay her electric bill, and goes to work one day and somebody says, you need to look at this house over here. There's a great house over here for $800 a month. And you take your 3 kids over to Glen Oak in there. That's a bona fide move. Those 3 children ought to be able to play sports at Glen Oak. It's the, you know, it's those little cases that we have that, you know, aren't on the up and up that way. And so I always hate it when I hear this, and I've heard it this fall. They move in, we approve it because it, you know, the move has to compel the transfer. Dad changed jobs, whatever, those type of things. And as soon as football's done, they go right back to their other school, and that eats at me. But it happens. So more on NIL to come, I'm sure. Yep.
Well, on those same regards, what about open enrollment? Can you tell me how that is, or if
Sure.
it's the school's responsibility, or what do they do? That seems to be more
Right.
open now than that.
Yeah. So open enrollment is in 87% of our schools in Ohio, and I'll tell you, the school choice is here, folks, and it's not going anywhere. Would I love to go back to the day when you went to school, or you went to school where you lived? Absolutely. I'd love that, because I always say you can find a doctor, a lawyer, or a successful person in every high school there is in this state. You don't have to go to a certain high school to get, you know, that. So that's, but it's open enrollment for us, and we have 9 exceptions on a move, okay? And the really easiest way to tell you is open enrollment, it comes in, is different than moving, obviously. And so if you open enroll into a high school after you've established your eligibility as a freshman, then you have to sit the second half of the season out and tournament. The reason we did that is you had to sit half a year out about 10, 12 years ago, and there was a school in Cincinnati that won the state basketball championship that started out 0-11. And then their kids got eligible. 6 kids got eligible, and they ran the tables. And so we got smart and flipped it. Said, okay, now you're going to sit that out. So our schools have to regulate that. Our principals are in charge to make sure our constitution's followed because our membership's voluntary, and you have to have a board approval every year to get in, and the principal's in charge of that. So where you live, and I say this all the time, come on, man. This is year 40 for me. I still consider myself an educator. You know where your kids live. And you know who's living where they say they're living and where they're not, if you're running a good program. And so the open enrollment's here. It's not going anywhere. That's a little bit different than the move thing. But and that gets into our, you know, we do our classifications by EMIS, which is a student enrollment count. And it's a great system we have here because it's tied into the funding at a school. And there's no superintendent in the world that's going to give up 50 kids to play in Division IV instead of 3 and lose 50 kids worth of money. It ain't gonna happen. But then our competitive balance factor comes in, and I dare open this door, but our competitive balance was put in because we wanted to balance the playing field with private and public. And so when we put that in 8 years ago, about 42% of our private schools won our state championships. Since competitive balance, it's about 32%. And we're looking at the competitive balance now to see how the factor that we put in. So somebody that lives there, grew up there, counts as a 0. Somebody that moved in after a certain time counts as a 1. Somebody could count as a 7. So if you have 5 kids on your varsity roster that played that don't live in your district, that could add 35 kids to your student count and bump you up that division. And so just so you know, not that I'm counting 13 of our 56 schools in the regional final were private. Last week, 6 of our 28, and this week 3 are private. Not that who's counting those numbers, not me. But so because I hear it, I hear that all the time. Yep, we're right here. Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering, what's like the protocol for changing a rule? I was told years ago that you weren't supposed to play Sunday, that OHSAA had a rule, no Sunday games, and now we've been playing Sunday games.
Yeah. It was never a rule. Yeah. It was never a rule. We could stay off Sundays because we didn't have as many divisions. That creates some things for us. And then things have changed for families as well. We do our best to stay off Sundays. But sometimes it's not, and we don't run into issues with our families and our kids because they're playing on Sundays, soccer, AAU, basketball. Those families are already doing stuff on Sundays anyhow. But I do get some complaints. So just talk about Dayton for basketball. We go in on Thursday, Friday, Saturday for girls. They flip the floor. They put a new floor in. They host NCAA games, play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday. We can't get in there on Thursday. We have to go Friday. And so under the old format, with 4 divisions, we had all 16 schools down there for 3 days. That ran into Sunday. Under the new format with basketball, we're playing our state semifinals out around the state. And we're doing a football model. And our state finals at Dayton, so we'll be able to stay off Sunday for that. So
I boycotted the West Branch game that it was on Sunday in Acton, the baseball.
Oh, the baseball? Yeah. Yeah, so it's venue availability. And again, believe me, we make every attempt that we can to stay off Sundays. So, we're in baseball and softball. I'm not sure, I have to relook at that, but we're doing, we're coming up here. We did this in volleyball in Dayton, but up here, we're playing state semifinal games at Thurman Munson. I think we might have like 4 or 5 games over there. And then the finals will all be at Akron. And the Rubber Ducks. I'm trying to think, yeah, Rubber Ducks. Great stadium to be in. And so, again, I promise you, I can't promise you we're not going to have something on Sunday, but I will promise you this, that's a last resort for us. So, yeah. With that, hey, hope to see some of you out this week over there and at the Hall of Fame, and appreciate being here. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.